when the overnight reset happens, how soon after do you see the price of gold and silver reaching their true values? Well, there's likely to be more than one overnight reset. The first one, like we've witnessed in Venezuela, was probably the largest jump, but they've already done 3 overnight resets, and they're probably going to do another one. So it isn't a one-time event. It's something that keeps happening. However, when you're going to see gold and silver reach their true values, that's the start of it. Okay, that's the start of it. But you need to just, when they, you're going to know when this is all over, when they put a component of gold into the new currency to get your confidence and your trust back. So, it'll start with the first revaluation, and it'll keep happening every time they're forced to do another revaluation. But understand that it really is all about confidence. So it'll happen at the reset. It'll happen again at the next reset, and however many times they're going to do it. They'll do it until, again, people are like, yeah, well, that doesn't work. We don't trust you. They go real local, they barter, they use whatever gold and silver because nobody wants to take the currency. Some that are forced to take the currency will still have to. But yeah, it's more than just one reset, but that's when it starts to reach its potential. And not potential, its true value. And Adam O asks, if governments want CBDCs, why would they ever allow or facilitate the trade of gold and silver? Well, because when they took the gold and silver away from us, that was back in 1933, right? And since then, they've been on a campaign to get people to think that gold and silver are basically worthless relics, which is not true since they're used in every sector of the global economy. And at this point, when they reopened that in the 70s and then the 80s, the gold market is what I'm really referring to here. What percentage of the population actually owns gold, right? A very, very small part of the population. So central banks feel like they've done their job, especially when they continue to suppress the visible price that people see and think, oh, well, that's what gold is worth. Well, a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. They don't want you to know that, but that's why they do that. Now, once we have the CBDCs, that's programmable money. So they could very well build into that CBDC that you can't buy gold or silver with it. So that's why it's important to get it now while you still have that option. So yeah, why would they ever allow it? They would not allow it if they thought that it could take over their position. But because they've spent all these years, almost not 100 yet, but getting close, 90 almost, and most people don't realize, have you seen the pieces where this, I don't remember his name, but he went out with a candy bar and a 1 ounce gold coin and offered people, we should do that. You know what? We should actually really do that. You can either have this candy bar or you can have this gold coin or this silver coin. Which one would you want? And invariably people take the candy bar because they're so stupid. But when you have that mentality, governments and central banks aren't worried about that. And since they have the ability to easily suppress the price of gold to get people to go, no, look, gold hasn't done anything. Yeah, it's done a lot. It's done what it was supposed to do, which is over time, protect your purchasing power value. It's critical. But yeah, they allow it because they don't think you're going to do it and because it's easy for them to manipulate you away from it. But those of us that are smart, those of us that actually understand money, we're accumulating. We know the truth and they're accumulating. So Stephen L asks, What do you think of the trend of people on fixed or limited incomes maxing out credit cards to buy precious metals and food? Since credit card debt is unsecure, there would be no repercussions either way when they just stop paying or declare bankruptcy. Well, I don't know if you have personally ever been in that circumstance where the bill collectors are calling you constantly. I personally don't think it's a good idea. I mean, grow a garden, get some seeds. You can even go locally and get the seeds for free. You know, you can join a community garden and grow your own food. You know, debt is not, there's two kinds of debt. There's self-liquidating debt and there's non-self-liquidating debt. When you go and you buy something with a credit card, you already know the interest on those credit cards are ridiculous. You're never getting out of debt. Yeah, could you just stop paying it or declare bankruptcy? Yes, I suppose you could. But the reality is the stress and the nightmare that you would have all along the way, is it really worth it? And I don't really think it is. But I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what I would or would not do. And that is definitely not a choice that I would make. But the rest is up to you. And Grateful67 asks, although I'm debt-free, I have limited funds left for my paycheck after paying the bills. Should I buy silver with extra money after each pay period, or save up enough over time to buy gold? Which is better to have? Well, really, Grateful67, you need to have both. And maybe an ounce of gold is too much for your budget, but maybe a small piece of gold is more in your budget. Now, this is not the area that I work in anymore, so it's not like I can tell you, yeah, gold Swiss francs are 1/20 of ounce of gold and they're $350 or $250, because I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I can ask somebody, and if I had pre-read the questions, I probably would have. Or if Eric were here today, he would totally be able to answer that. But, a fractional coin, I don't know how much you have left. A fractional coin might only be $200, $300, $400, and maybe you could have some of that, but you need the silver too. So you really need both, because silver is more about day-to-day barterability. Gold is more about wealth preservation. So, so kind of a combination of the two. And if you need 2 paychecks to be able to buy the gold coin, maybe you kind of swap that around in your budget so that you are buying both silver and gold. And I'd also like you to keep in mind, obviously we're very happy to position you into silver and gold, but gold and silver in any form is classified as monetary at its base. So, for years, I don't find it anymore, and I don't really look for it. It's not that I don't look for it. I don't really have time to go to yard sales anymore. But when I did, I would buy. I don't care if it's bent or broken. You've seen my chopstick. Sterling silver is 92.5% pure. Mexican silver, so the bracelets and things, they're 92.5% pure. And if they're dented or bruised or, banged up and tarnished, and people go, oh, I don't want to polish, all day long. So there are many different ways, if you are on a fixed income, that you can accumulate gold and silver, since what if it's broken? What if it's banged up? You don't care. All you really care about is the gold weight, the silver weight, the content and the weight of it. So, that would be my preference to putting it on a credit card, would be looking at it in that way. And if you have limited funds from your paycheck, you definitely need to have a bit of both. And that's a good way to do it. It's one way to do it anyway. And you can do a combination. What's wrong with that? right? Okay, Captain X asks, what do we do when we get a CBDC? Well, if we're forced to use that as legal tender, then you're going to use it as legal tender. But originally in my strategy, once we had a component of gold in the new currency, then you could feel comfortable converting some of your gold into that new currency. And that was originally what I intended to do for myself. Having said that, with the advent of the CBDCs, I'm not putting more in there than I absolutely need to. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold your wealth steady in gold outside of the system, and then as you need to convert it, I'm not talking day to day, it might be a month or a quarter, something like that, but not a really long time period. Because you have to keep in mind that since CBDCs are programmable currencies, and with the central banks in control of them, look at how great they're doing. What a great job they're doing now, right? So you don't want to convert more into the CBDC than you need to. You hold your wealth here, and then maybe on a monthly or quarterly or every other month or something like that, depending upon your personal circumstance, you would just convert enough of your gold into the CBDC to take care of what you needed to take care of. You just don't do it all at once. And ML asks, what will happen to 401k savings and stock investments when CBDCs are implemented? Well, what's going to happen is whatever you have in dollars, there'll be some kind of conversion ratio. It might start out at 1-to-1 because they're not going to want pushback, and we're not educated on CBDCs yet. And they want you to think about a digital dollar the same way that you think about a paper dollar. And, frankly, when they made the transition, the $1 gold coin is probably about half the size of my pinky fingernail. I mean, it's teeny tiny. They want you to think of the dollar bill that they came out with the same way that you thought about that. So that way you just keep everything in the system and you don't worry about it. But what's going to happen to your 401k savings and stock investments before they implement the CBDCs is a lot more concerning. And I say that because you just look at the chaos that's raging around you in like every single area. So it's the hyperinflation that's going to destroy those. And this next crisis, look, I can't guarantee anything because this is way beyond my control, but the central banks have very limited tools. And at the same time that they're raising rates to fight the inflation, our government is spending a lot of money to create inflation. It's really what makes me look and go, yeah, I think they're planning this crash because it just is illogical. What they're doing is absolutely illogical. But then again, what they've been doing since 2008 with all the money printing for free has been absolutely illogical. And you know darn well it's not going to end well. So I'm not as concerned about what happens to those fiat money assets when the CBDC comes into play, because they're going to want your easy cooperation. So wherever we are, maybe it's a 1-to-1 conversion. I don't know. We'll have to see what that conversion is, but they're going to want as little pushback as possible. It's what's going to happen to your wealth in those products going up to it, because those are all dollars, and 1 trillion times 0 is 0.